Good. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our U-Fab network fourth meeting. So here we are together with the U-Fab network members, but also other audience from students, but also from other colleagues that we invited. So today we will have an open seminar where we have three different speakers talking about do-it-yourself and do-it-together. This is our main topic today for the seminar. But maybe before I explain a little bit what is this U-Fab network and why we are here today. So as I told you, this is our fourth meeting. Actually, we started forming this group of, let's say, Fab Labs that are all based in universities. In 2020, we started gathering and sharing our interests to make this kind of network. And our first meeting was unfortunately online, but later we had our first in-presence meeting in Siena last year, and then this year in Rome, and we are here in Bolzano. And this is actually a joint event together with Trento, UniTrento Fab Lab. So tomorrow we will go to Trento and Rovereto to continue our, let's say, event. So just to introduce you a bit today's speakers who would talk about do-it-yourself, but also do-it-together, which are the basis and basic concepts for Fab Labs. And they will try to bring us from electronics to products to materials. And then they will also highlight how they actually see do-it-yourself from their perspective and how this could be also explored and further developed. And our first speaker is Nitzan Cohen, and he will present his project Do-It-Yourself Redefined. And afterwards we have Alberto Montresor from UniTrento, and he will present how to connect and integrate people and tools and tech. And afterwards, we have Art van Bezooijen from unibz, and he will talk about do-it-yourself materials and future fibers. And I give the word to Nitzan Cohen for the first time. And we will receive the questions in the end after we see the three speakers. So we will have a discussion round and question and answers afterwards. Okay, Nitzan.
Thank you, Sejil. Thank you very much. The micro is not fake. It's just for the video and the online thing. Otherwise, it's kind of why are we holding a microphone? Just as a small detail. Thanks. Thank you very much, Sejil, for the short intro. Maybe I just take the opportunity as kind of I put one of the hats I'm not having and put it away and then put another one. Just maybe one word to just really congratulate everybody that came and all the guests that came from also quite far in Italy. I'm saying that as my role as the Dean of the Faculty of Design and Art, and the academic responsible for BITZ, our Fab Lab. It's fantastic for us as a very young Fab Lab, I assume the youngest Fab Lab in the network, to be a part of it. It's a fantastic opportunity to learn, to grow, and hopefully also share a bit of our humble experiences into the network and grow all together. So thank you very, very much for coming, for sharing, and for all the organizers, especially from our side, Sejil, Katrin, Uwe, the Trento part, and so on. Yes. Okay, now I switch hats. I'm as well a product designer, a professor here at the Faculty for Product Design, and I'll dive directly in. Just a small kind of contextualization. Here at the university, I've established a small design or research and design lab where we're working on a wide scale of projects, mainly interdisciplinary. We're collaborating with many colleagues from different fields, from the field of Really, it's very small. It would be online soon. So, but collaborating from colleagues from food technology and food science, we've been working on an open platform bioreactor for fermentation, where we are looking at producing with it or growing with it biodegradable materials. This is these small captions. Right now the project is a part of the Vitra Design Museum exhibition, Plastic Remaking Our World. It was shown in the at the Vitra Design Museum. Now it is since 1 month at the Victoria and Albert Museum in Dundee, and it would move on, I think, in the summer to the MAT in Lisbon. So we're kind of trying to propagate ourselves also that. This is a fantastic collaboration with colleagues, experts. Some are also here. From as well the Faculty of Science and Technology, and in the field of nanoelectronics, printed electronics, and then somehow combining these, but then also taking a different direction into the world of DIY. Before we start and kind of focus on our project concerning that, I thought that maybe a bit as a framing concerning the discussions this afternoon with the different speakers and all together concerning DIY, maybe I share with you a few slides of the first preliminary thought we had whilst starting to work on DIY. What is it actually? I think it's one of those terms, like many, that we say, okay, we use it every day, but when we actually start to think about it, then what is actually DIY? And I just, for those that would be banal, I apologize, but otherwise maybe it is helpful to open a discussion. So what is actually DIY? The term DIY is a formula, or we can see it as a formula. Every time you do an it by yourself, it is a DIY. In the past, almost everything was done by ourselves, therefore there was no special term for it. And we can go back to really the beginning of civilization and see everything that it was already there like that. We just, it depended on how you define it. No? If we were in Neanderthal times hunters and gatherers, then there were already specialization of knowledge. There was already knowledge passed. There was already, already then there was also a close connection between the fact what I'm doing, the need to transmit the knowledge, and that was already linked to objects and aspects that I need to know how to use. Later on, we call it technology. So, I mean, we could also already go back there and see, okay, actually, it is not a new concept at all. The term DIY, as it is in common use since the 1950s in the UK, where it's kind of anecdotal, but otherwise also interesting. In London, there were more plumbing problems than plumbers. So basically the whole city was leaking, and not enough plumbers to connect the to repair all the leaks. So they started in the daily newspapers, propagating instructions of, okay, how can I solve myself before the whole apartment is getting flooded? So this is how it started in the term, in the common notion, as we call it, DIY. DIY could now be seen as bringing back possibilities that we seem to have lost and are now rediscovering. Commonly seen, and that's kind of the standard definition, DIY is a method of building, modifying, or repairing things without the direct aid of experts or professionals. Here we try to chart it, and this kind of would be the end of this DIY introduction. We charted the process in a very simple way. We had kind of more complex one, but I would not bore you with that. The whole process starts always with a need, or that's what we recognize as a need. If I want to have something, well, in the end, that is that need. There's the it that stands to begin with, and that's the promise. No, it's that photo, image, the thing I've seen and I want to have it. And then there's the self, where there's different components, obviously, but most of them, most important for this discourse, are the motivation and the knowledge. And the motivation and the knowledge are very fluid. And they're also in direct contact, of course, with the whole process. Then comes the do, so the action itself. And then the it's, I'm just kind of zooming into the it's, and then we identified 4 it's. So four scenarios that I'm sure you all know, but I think maybe it's helpful to look at them very quickly. The first one, product as it is, I followed all the instructions, I got what I wanted. There's the second one, produit. So it's unfinished, I'm not finished with it, I stop there, it's maybe waiting for tomorrow, maybe for next Sunday, it would maybe wait forever. And then there's the third version, the one with the unintended mistakes, but hey, it still works. No, we could still read this. But then, you know, it's up for me to decide, am I going to fix it? Is it okay? Yes or no? And then the fourth version, which is the most mature one, possibly after I went through the others, or also not. And that's kind of the unintended, or the intended variables. All this reflects and projects in the end to the self, which is with success and how it worked out, you know, pride, empowerment, fulfillment, or negatively seen, you know, frustration, insecurity, which could happen in either way. I mean, I could have made it and it worked very well, but still it was so frustrating I would never do it again. Or I failed colossally, but I'm totally fired up to do it again, and. So these are obviously kind of projecting back to the next, hopefully, part of the cycle where maybe I'm trusting myself to do more, to know more, and so on and so on. And this is what we want to achieve, not just a one-time linear thing, but actually circularity also in this. Now I'll jump back to the project that we were working on. That was what I just showed you now, or kind of shared with you now, is a part of the analysis that we did at the time when we were starting to work on this project. DIYR, DIY Redefined, exploring the innovative potential of designing DIY, mostly electronics. As DIYR is a very long name to say, and once you work on something, you need a good name for it just to actually relate to that, what you do. Then we actually realized that if we read it, it sounds like deer. And that's maybe a nice analogy to those things that we are actually making ourselves. And then there's, you know, kind of suggesting the preciousness of it. So I would refer it, and this is how we use it, we just call it deer. I will now share with you just a few of the main objectives that we have in the project, and afterwards I take you to the online platform that we've been working on, which is not 100% finished. You'll be actually the first one who are not from the project that would be seeing it. So our generally the first objective or description. In the project, we are exploring the potential of creating new product typologies through combining electronics with agile producers, so producer users or prosumers, otherwise known producer-consumer, while cutting off, as far as possible, the complete industrial change in between for the benefit of the end person, I would say. User is also not the nicest name. By using available and yet more advanced technology while being freed from most industrial constraints, new typologies, new material combinations with these typologies, new functions are all becoming possible, and this is what we want to also explore and positively exploit. With its sustainability-oriented blueprint, which is based on true on-demand diffuse manufacturing principles with high producer involvement, the DEAR project offers a more sustainable alternative to nowadays mass-produced, mass production and mass consumption. Again, as far as we could, these are all very, very big definitions and big aims. Impact for the layperson. DEAR wants to become an initiator, a point of entry to develop ambitions and motivations to do things by oneself and move from being a passive user to an active and aware producer while developing a closer relation, hopefully a positive one, with technology. Impact for makers and DIYers. DEAR wants to become a point of entry into the realm of design, into the realm of more aware, circular, environmental, and complete world of alternative products and production. Impact towards the industry and the market. DEAR wants to set an example and offer alternative ways of producing and interacting with users/producers. Transparency of the products and process should enable new patterns of use, reuse, and especially repair, fostering circularity, longevity, and the awareness of them in a product category that currently contrasts these values, unfortunately, all too often, if not completely. DEAR and Fab Lab. The project could potentially become a significant new tool for Fab Labs to illustrate their capabilities to both existing as well as potential new members, especially for those who might otherwise have not discovered or would never ever otherwise discover the Fab Lab, as in, hey, I want to have this thing, could you help me doing it? And then a more critical reflection that maybe relates to public Fab Labs, maybe less to university Fab Labs, but nevertheless, I think it's an important point to acknowledge, so that in the context of Fab Labs and maker spaces, we have certain sustainability problems, and what we aim to do is to raise and strengthen certain discourses, awareness, and ways of making and doing that are scarcely there, again, especially from sustainability and design perspective, and the design perspective relates again to sustainability. This has been a very much an iterative process, starting like a, let's say, more classical design project, parallel to a more conceptual investigations. I wouldn't take you through the whole process. It would just take us too long. Just to mention that a very important part of it is as well using the technologies and using simple available materials. Everything that there is a normal Fab Lab, but we were just trying to do things in a way that maybe the machine doesn't do it, or maybe we're not doing it until now like that, in order to have it our way. So also there is a certain discourse with available technology in order to get that what we want, and maybe the technology is not inclined, or we're not doing it otherwise. We've been working, as I mentioned, on this online platform, dear.dev. So I'll just kind of navigate you through it just very, very briefly. So what I didn't mention, and I hope you would see here, is that we try to communicate it as a brand, and seeing DIY and all, let's say, sustainable and positive worldly values, not as that what should stand in forefront, because if that would stand in forefront, I might not be inclined to do or use it. The value of the object themselves should speak for it. So Dear is on that level propagate itself or claims to be another kind of brand, one that is here for you, for us, and not necessarily for our wallet, and that makes a big difference, a very small but a very big difference. Trying to, or striving to, empowering knowledge acquisition and promoting new forms of production. On that sense, we designed a growing ecosystem of what we hope is innovative, playful, guiltless, and highly purposeful, as we would like to call it, social electronics, for anyone to build, hack, rethink, personalize, share, fix, and, well, forever is maybe a big word, but if you can do something yourself and build something yourself, you're much more inclined to use it rather than throw it away after 2 years and get a new one. And if you don't know how to fix it, then you'll find somebody to help you, or you are kind of much more incentivized to do it. We identified different product typologies and created rather extensive product families that are all done according to, let's say, our dogma and how we would like to treat it and treat the project. So we have a family of fans, we'll see it in a second, a rather extensive family of lights. These are Bluetooth lights, loudspeakers, and you know, if we see this, these panels are actually 4 mm thick, made from corrugated cardboard, the one that we have from just any kind of moving boxes. And when I was talking before about alternative typologies and possibilities, this is what happens when, you know, we start cutting aspects out and just think about the result and not about many maybe other factors. Yeah, battery driven or not, these are a kind of a small family of Bluetooth loudspeakers, different sizes, wall mounted, freestanding. As we have been working on this quite extensive family altogether, I mean, this is kind of a small family photo of most of the typologies, but certainly not all the objects. We have this kind of a tab called collections, where one can actually see the different typologies. So of fans, we have medium, large, and wall. Small is not there. It's still, no, the project is running. I could just enter one. So in the end, there's always kind of that end page which shows the object itself. The wings are made from the same kind of 4 mm cardboard with a piece of paper on top of it, printed, not printed, sprayed in a certain way. Yes, no, this is kind of, you know, up to us. The thing is that once we do things ourselves, the possibilities are, so to say, endless. But then endless, to a certain point, is very much kind of creating a certain stop, like, you know, endless is in a certain context, I think, very, very close to also to nothing. We are so much used and somehow conditioned by, well, choose 3 colors, that's the colors we have in production. Then the question is, how do we communicate that everything is possible? And this is also something that we have been working on and trying to also develop different possibilities to also see that. When I was talking about alternative typologies, look and feel to DIY, I mean, you can see that here possibly where really I think it's a different materiality and something where, again, DIY is not standing in the forefront, but rather as an extra value. An extensive family of lights, desk lights, floor lights, wall lights, ceiling lights. This is all one ecosystem with a lot of interchangeability. We work a lot with magnets, so kind of just using magnets to keep the lights on, because LED lights just weigh practically nothing, and neodymium magnets are very strong. And like that, creating something which is very, very flexible, interchangeable, and movable. There's a magnetic head here, and like that I can take the lamp or the lights off, can put it back, could put it back on. These are just simple tubes from Obi, and if I chuck a magnet inside the tube, I can just add another lamp and another lamp and another lamp. So the whole thing is very, very much interchangeable. So we have structures and lights, and then the whole thing is a very very fluid ecosystem of typologies and also possibilities. One of the problems we identified of these kind of projects, let's say generally speaking, is that there's 1, 2, 3 possibilities, and therefore we really worked for a long time as in trying to make it, to amplify it as far as possible, really giving a feeling as far as we could of a real world, of a complete ecosystem, not just 1 or 2 solutions. Well, it's kind of all there as far as we could. Yeah, paying a lot of attention to details, and this is maybe more kind of classical product design thinking, but really acknowledging the fact that the product doesn't end where the product physically ends, but maybe it ends in the end of the cable. So we're also designing the plugs and so on and so on. Technology-wise, all switches, for instance, are so to say, touch switch. Basically, it's a magnetic field switch. So that is also kind of, there's a nice technological edge to it. Costs are practically nothing in that sense. We have an extensive array of instructions. Basically, everything you've seen are or has instructions. Each product page in the end has the relative or relevant instructions. But otherwise, there's a comprehensive instructions page, which I will show you in a second. Maybe just very quickly before that, I think I have a few minutes. I talked about the communication of possibilities. And here we put basically this kind of products page or kind of products repository, all the different versions that we did. So all the different typologies are visible, but also all the different versions. Yeah, it could have so many colors. You can just color one part and the other or not, or you can color the whole thing, or you can not color it at all and have this aluminum tube, and then the fan could just go up and down, and then the whole thing also becomes movable. And there's, you know, the different sizes, the different possible mountings. The lights, all the different sorts, the different kinds, and so on. And as you see, it is very extensive, and this is really a part of the idea. We also developed the ideas of interchangeability and kind of trying to rethink how we're dealing with the object around us, and maybe if this is a light that I have like this when I'm reading in the living room, maybe that light could also be my reading light next to my bed. So I could also just take the light with me if I go to bed, and there's a small magnetic knob just above my bed where I just chuck the light there, and then I continue reading. Rather than having lamps all around where I'm moving around, I could also move the lamp with me. We're moving with so many other objects in the room or in the house, why not also with those? And by that creating a whole different relation to these objects around us in the home and in the house. Relating to a common problem that we have in the homes, do I have electricity in the ceiling? Yeah, fantastic. But if not, what do I do? Well, you know, cables are also great. There's something very playful and very beautiful about them. We just need to treat it like that. Or if not, I could just put a magnetic ball on the ceiling, and the whole chandelier is in fact a magnetic pole by itself that I could move from one spot to the other, and so on and so on. So like that, again, trying to communicate possibilities and something that could really instigate me maybe to solve issues I'm having, and so on. If we can avoid cables, it's fantastic. But if we have them, well, there might be fantastic aesthetics that could come from it, and so on. Then we have the instructions again for everything. There are instructions. We have two main categories. There are what we call advisors, so these kind of generic things of how to finish paint, sand, and so on. How to revive batteries. How to retrieve batteries. We have a huge problem of e-waste. Not getting into that, but that played a very big role for us. Everything that we have which is battery driven, it's all retrieved batteries, either by ourselves or retrieved batteries that we're buying. And here we're also giving the instructions of how to retrieve batteries by oneself. And then maybe I move to this view, makes it a bit easier, where there's kind of an overview of all the different instructions that we have for the moment in the ecosystem. And basically this is how the instructions look like, with all the, let's say, necessary information, links for the electronic components, download links for what I need to 3D print. If I can 3D print myself, fantastic. If not, I go to the Fab Lab. If I don't have a Fab Lab, there's more than 5,000 in the world, but nevertheless, I could also order it online from platforms where we will upload all the files. Yeah. This is that. In the end of the instructions, there's also this kind of again that works with. So again, this is a very closed or very close ecosystem all by itself. I think my time's up. I will close here by that. We should be this should be open publicly online in the coming weeks, or latest in the end of the year. And I'm really curious to the feedback, but there's a lot of very direct stakeholders here, which I hope could be using this project in order to propagate what you do, and then make any other possible versions, and beside that what we did, you know, to maybe bring up some really very necessary change. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Where is slideshow? So my name is Alberto Montresor, and I'm part of the Trento team, the University Fab Lab. So the goal for me today is to tell you a little bit on how we connect and integrate people, tools, and tech. And so there is also a question mark, because the idea is that, yes, we are doing something, but we would like to hear also from you what could be done to do it better. And so a little history about, a little background about our Fab Lab. First of all, never start a Fab Lab just before an epidemic. It's not a good idea. Okay, so we started a few months before. So at the beginning there was a lot of enthusiasm, but no machines. And then we had a period where we had no people, but we started to have machines. And then finally, with last year and this year, everything is back on track again. So what we do, I show you a little bit of some of our activities, just to give you an idea on what we are good at, because we are not a Fab Lab born into design faculty, an engineering in the sense of civil engineering faculty or architecture and so on. We are part of the computer science department, and the computer science department is currently, hopefully not forever, funding it, because the idea is to make it university space. So clearly we do workshops, and this is normal. We already, this morning, we were hearing about this. We are trying to connect with the reality around us. So for example, one of the reality is the MUSE, the Museum of Science and Technology in Trento, which also has a Fab Lab inside, but this inside is not very good idea, because it's very difficult to get in without paying the ticket for the museum. So we were able to open to help them to open the museum for an Arduino week and so on. So we are really good in promoting challenge-based activities. So for example, the one that you see on the bottom is the DG EduHack. This is something organized by EIT Digital, and the idea was to design activities that are supposed to improve the educational process at large. Okay, so we had a few teams joining in our hub, because this actually is an international hackathon with literally thousands of teams, and for the second year in a row, our team was able to win, to be one of the winners, because it's there are like 3 first positions, and all of them get a money prize. And we were able to be in these winners of this activity. And there is a byproduct of this, and the idea is that now some of them are actually trying to transform this into an actual prototype. We can skip this. So something that we also do a lot is competitive programming, because remember, we are born inside a computer science department. So the idea is to, again, bring students in the university to do something which is not in their curriculum. Okay, there are no credits for this. There are no credits for the hackathons. There are no badge or whatever. The idea is that you want to do it because you think this is good for your education, for your growth, cultural growth. Okay, so the idea is that even in bad times, so February of this year, we were able to have hundreds of students participating. Our maximum was 180. Just the day of Codogno, the first day of the epidemic here in Italy. And so the idea is how we put all these people working together. The idea is to really go outside the curriculum. So for example, there is a meme contest, okay? And this is the kind of stuff that you see. And some of them are involving me, but I'm perfectly fine with that. So the idea is to create an environment where you can be relaxed. There are no evaluation, there are no credits and so on. You just want to be part of this, okay? And yes, you see what. Some of them are there just to participate in the meme content. This again, because when I was asked to do this, I was thinking we should try to highlight what we are good at. Okay? Yes, exactly. What we are good at, and the idea is that we are good at putting a lot of people together doing this. So Google Hash Code is this, again, international competition, and we have been second in the world as hub. So not our students are not the best, our single students are not the best in the world, but the collective of students are second in the world as number of successful software developed in this competition, 4 hours of competition. There is this Turkish bank, which is our biggest enemy, our nemesis, okay? And we are trying to beat them, there, but they have 18,000 employees, so it's quite difficult, okay? And again, the idea is putting people together. So here we have some pictures of the Fab Lab of your dreams. So events in our ICT days, an event of the department trying to ask students what they want. And clearly, and this again is quite common in some university Fab Labs, but again, is part of our mission, having them part of the activities. So they are improving our machines, they are decorating our environment, and so on, adding functionalities like remote control and the possibility to take movies of the production of the 3D printers. And now to what we are really good at is involving schools, okay? So the idea is that we are trying to do, and I'm also trying to do it as a delegate of the university for the tiered mission and to involve all the departments in this activity. The idea is that trying to involve students in high schools, and not only high schools, but also middle schools and primary schools, in understanding what is the world of the future. So the idea is that, for example, there is this technical institute in Trento with some of them, they study computer science, some of them pharmaceutics. So the idea is that our biology department, our computer science department, together went there and tried to teach them in alternanza scuola-lavoro event, lab, to teach them what is bioinformatics. So there were lectures about computer science, a lecture about biology, and then specifically about bioinformatics. And then the students were asked to detect illnesses inside the DNA code that were provided to them by the biology department. And for us, this is part of our educational mission, because again, if I have to identify what we are good for, is to connect people and to educate people, okay? So the idea is that I really like this model because we started doing everything by ourselves. So there were people from the biology department, people from the computer science department running the activities. This year, I mean 2023, it will be repeated and there will be people, half of this will be done by their teachers, okay? And eventually, next year, hopefully, everything will be done by their teachers. So the idea is that we create knowledge and we hope to create self-sustaining activities in our environment. There was another project, mathematical games. The idea was to develop games inspired by mathematics, and this was done with, again, secondary schools students, okay? And there were people from our mathematical department. The idea was to work with ideas that have been developed in divulgation course about science that was part of the mathematics curriculum. And for us, here the idea is that we would like to involve our students in this process. So the idea is that part of the activities were run by our students that were helping the students in the high schools to develop their ideas. And then, clearly, at the very end, this was done in a Fab Lab. Then eventually we got real products, some of them actually really nice to play, some of them not so nice, but the idea, the interesting part was discussing with them about the process. So how to design this system, how to play with them and discover that they are completely boring. And so you have to start again and so on. And later this afternoon, for those of you who are coming to the Fab Lab, you will see also something like this. So laboratory kits for physics. This is actually a project, and Matilde later will give a presentation. So I skip that. And then for the interesting part, I think, so I'm including here something that we are not really the initiator, okay? But there are nice activities, we are collaborating with them, and some of these activities are really nice because they are run by students, sometimes initiated, started by students, okay? This is our goal. So how to create an environment in which something like this could happen. Clearly, this is the industrial engineering department. They are participating in Formula SAE, which is a formula for university cars developed completely by students. And what is interesting there, again, is not part of our design, but is part of what I want to discuss with you today, is the fact that everything is run by students. So they have a mechanism to decide who is in charge, I don't know, for the engine, for the battery, for the race, for the electronics, and so on, and they have a democratic process inside their organization, okay? All this knowledge is completely useless if we think that the only way to do it is by creating activities by ourselves or searching for other activities in the university, because at the very end we are like 4 or 5 people, okay? So the idea is that we try to bring this to as much schools as we can. And again, the idea is to create an environment where, this time, not students, but teachers can feel like they are part of something, so create a community. So, for example, in September, we had 170 teachers studying computer science at different levels. So even unplugged computer science, which is a mechanism to teach computer science to very young kids without the computers, but also trying to go in the topics that are normally discussed in Fab Labs, like electronics, 3D printing, and so on. Okay, there is a byproduct also for this, in the sense that by putting together so many teachers, they start to think about, they hear about other projects, ideas that are being developed in other schools, maybe very far away, there is no competition between them. And so after September, we were involved in a few projects, innovation projects, that started in schools. And so we are part of it. We are doing some consultancy, and that's just our goal. So we want to start things and not just to be the one that has to do everything by ourselves. You see also another symbol, apart one of the Fab Lab there, is GLOW. GLOW is Associazione di Promozione Sociale. So it's something external to the university, run by Francesca. So the idea is that something cannot be done inside the university, because I look at some of the colleagues here, you know how bureaucracy can be really, really bad for your health. And so sometimes trying to run things outside the university is a way to involve even more students. So if you see, for example, in this example, the picture doesn't show them, but the idea is that we cannot run a lab with 170 teachers, not all of them at the same time, clearly, but without the help of students. So our students were the tutors of the teachers. And so this was the way to involve as many people as possible. And also, some of you have already seen pictures of this, so the Apple Lab. So I will not talk much about it, but the idea is that, again, using people, students, to provide a laboratory for social innovation. And recently, but I have to cut, we went also to trying to divulgate our ideas at the Maker Faire, Genova Science Festival, and so on. So, to finish, something that for which I'm very proud of. So, apart from Spec and Tech, which is something that has been created before, it's not our idea, but it gives you an idea of the kind of environment that we would like to see, is a meetup done by ex-students of computer science, not only computer science, but mostly computer science. They actually meet once per month after dinner, talking about tech and eating spec, okay? And yes, that's, and beer, clearly. But something that is really nice, so tomorrow, not tomorrow, on Saturday, there will be a competition which is called the Italian Collegiate Programming Contest. And you see how many activities we are doing, and Francesca, Matilde, Verdiana, Sol, and I are really exhausted by trying to organize all of this, but sometimes they self-organize themselves. And this is the kind of spirit that we like to see. So there will be, at the university, my role was just reserving a space for them on Saturday morning, that's it, and they will participate in an Italian competition that is self-organized by students. A few students came to me asking if they can organize a robotic competition for university. There is already the RoboCup non-junior, but the RoboCup non-junior is something really expensive to participate because you need a lot of money to build a very complex robot. So they would like to do something middle level between RoboCup Junior and RoboCup. So they created an association to promote this competition, and we will see the first edition in the spring in Trento. And these are our students just knocking at the door and, can we organize something? Yes, that's what we want to see. And tomorrow you see that this is the Dipartimento, okay? This is Salesa, where we are going to eat. And this is again another Associazione Promozione Sociale called Kazoo. They took over a bar and they created an association for this. They are meeting over some evenings, on Tuesday evenings, to again work together in projects when the university is closed. So, how to define our Fab Lab at the very end? So, it's a center for didactic dissemination, because we are not specialized in anything. We are not a Fab Lab very good at design. We don't have a design faculty, by the way. Some side they say it is a social club, which they say it in a derogatory way, but we actually took it as with pride, so to say. It's an aggregator for people who have desire to do, are looking for more, and are searching for people like them. So we would like to create a community, a collection of community of practices. So what does it take? So here I involve only Francesca, but clearly there is a team there. We are really good at starting initiatives, okay? Someone has also told me that I actually addicted to that, and the idea is this is something that we said, and we want to use the machines to have it on the t-shirts. Non si poteva dire di no, because they are coming to you with a proposal, and we say yes, okay? And we are the nightmare of our communication office, because this week we have the competition. On Tuesdays there is another hackathon and so on. So they say, okay, just one thing for the weekend and that's it. Okay, so, but I'm here with the question, so later we will have a little bit of discussions. And the big question is, okay, this is good, but how we keep them alive? Because we have this population which is continuously shifting every 3 or 5 years, depending if they stay with us for triennale plus magistrale or for just one of the degrees. And the idea is that we would like to create a way of thinking, a culture of associazionismo, and I looked for the word in English. I wasn't able to find it because associationism is a psychological theory, so it's completely different. So voluntary organization, extracurricularity, interdisciplinarity. You have seen that we are talking with mathematics, we are talking with physics, and so on. So the idea is that we would like to understand how to promote this culture and make it last, because these people are going to leave. It's not like you have an association, a voluntary organization, there are people staying there for decades, and so on. And so, what's next? We should sometimes stop, look back and think, but we are not doing it very often. We would like to study this meta-phenomenon, because the idea is that we are starting something, but we are not studying what we are starting. So we study the single activities. So we say, okay, STEM kit, the one of physics, we are making questionnaires and so on, but we are not studying the whole of our system. So the idea, part of the discussion of this U-Fab network, is how we do it and what other examples we can look and what we can do to be even better in doing this. So thank you.
Okay, the image stays this time. Okay, hello again. Amazing to have seen already a lot of activities in Fab Labs. Yeah, my name is Aart from Bezooijen. I will try to give a little bit of insight also in what is happening here in Bolzano in the Fab Lab. And since the title is do it yourself, do it together, a lot of the things you will see is actually student work. I have seen some of the students, of which I will show materials and projects. They are also here, so in case you want to catch up with them later, please do. And I also brought some material samples, since some of the things that I'm showing, they explain better by your fingertips, so you can actually touch the materials yourself. And yeah, let's start with about us, and maybe not in a very regular way. Normally, if we talk about us, we have something like this. This morning, we were at the Neue Tech Park for an introduction. I think we had a really nice overview of the possibilities, the laboratories over there. But now we are a little bit later in the day, and actually I wanted to talk shortly about us as a general overview, or actually a bigger picture. If we talk about us in a bigger sense, then yeah, we could maybe have a look at our planet first. If we talk about us in a bigger sense, of course there is more. There are things beyond planet Earth, but it is a very important system that we are actually part of and living in. And some might see this as a limitation. It's a little ball or a big ball with limited resources, but on the other side, it's also a very living system. There is this static picture is, of course, very alive with many species also beyond us as human beings. And I just wanted to start with this big picture to set also a little bit of context for two topics that I wanted to talk about, circular design and bioeconomy, where circular design is maybe in this case, in this talk, more related to the limitation of resources that we have, and the fact that we are also a living system is actually more related with the bioeconomy. And these two cycles, I think they are not new for most of you. These are, like you could say, illustrations of a cradle-to-cradle approach where circular design and bioeconomy are illustrated, with on the left side a technical cycle, or the things that we know as products that the industry is making, things that we can use, and as we heard before, things can be taken back and reused and recycled in a good way if the cycle is closed. And on the biological side, this is really the principle of nature, where we don't talk so much maybe about materials or resources, but more kind of nutrients, actually food that is actually the starting point of a product that we can use, but that in the end of the cycle is not being recycled like a plastic, but could actually degrade or be decomposed by other organisms and turned into nutrients for a next product or for a next cycle. And the two things that I wanted to talk about is future fibers and DIY materials, which are actually two titles of semester projects that we did in the past semesters. I'm here since last year in Bolzano, so this is still quite fresh. Also the materials are quite fresh. And I wanted to start shortly with first with these DIY materials. We had already a good introduction on do-it-yourself, what it is and what it can be. And in the field of materials, if we talk about DIY in the context of materials, we often see pictures like this, materialities, which in this case by Maria. I think she's also here. Yeah, in case you want to get the details. It's a lot about aesthetic exploration. Things you discover when you put materials into the light, patterns that are revealed, and as you can see, the structures that are visible in the material. So it's a very visual, aesthetic thing, but at the same time, I'm also just highlighting these ingredients, these 80 grams of water, 12 grams of gelatin, and 12 grams of glycerin, and 20 grams zucchini. Which is actually super important for us to actually also deal with this aspect of DIY, the documentation during the process, because if we talk about DIY materials in the Fab Lab, don't be scared. This is the table you actually sat on this afternoon. It can get very messy. A lot of things come together. Even though this creative exploration is bringing together a lot of materials, test things you do very quickly, and then you go to the next step. So it's a very, often because of the time scheduling, a very interactive process. But also thanks to Katrin, there are these moments where students sit down and then they actually write down their notes, the recipes, the materials that they have used. And they actually document what they have been making, and yeah, that's very important. Not only for the reason of like with cooking, remembering what did I actually make or create, because the reason to have these recipes is that we are able to replicate these things, which is very important. For one reason is to share it very clearly. If we want to share things like recipes, it makes sense to write them down. And on the other hand, also the materials are very the things we work with. The biomaterials are very often have a short lifetime. They change over time. Sometimes they change overnight. And that's also the reason why this documentation is not only focused on recipes, but also on taking pictures, photography of the materials that have been created. And like I said, this was last year, November, a DIY materials workshop we actually did in collaboration with a colleague from Politecnico. Valentina Rognoli was also with us, and this was a very, I think, inspiring moment, not just for bringing together the materials, but also from her side, sharing what has already been done in this field, which recipes which are also already available, and things that we can partly also take and build onto, so we don't have to start from scratch every time. That would actually be one way of doing it, but it can also be a part of a longer development. And yeah, like I said, bringing people together, in this case maybe even species together. You see here on the left side the hands of Barbara Polini, and on the right side Emma Sicker, who was also here, not a student anymore, actually a fresh graduate, but both very experienced in working with SCOBY, kombucha materials. That is actually also a very important part of the Fab Lab, bringing people together from different places and different institutes. And yeah, when I talk about the ingredients, the students bring a lot of materials. They can just get by Amazon. And no, I'm just joking. Actually, the nice thing about these do-it-yourself materials is that we can actually work with a lot of scrap materials or local materials that we can find here in the region. We have a very lively region if you look outside of these windows, and yeah, also you could say they are seasonal. Things are changing over time, so each project or each workshop could be very different, and it also gets us very close to the materials themselves. Here I'm standing in this hemp field in Bolzano, and it's yeah, if you read about hemp, what you can do with it, and you actually stand in between it, you realize actually also how big it is and how fast it can grow, and I think it's very nice to have this possibility of being very close what we actually work with, which is sometimes yeah, it might sound very logical, but in a lot of things we do, we are actually very distant of the origin or the resource that we work with. And yeah, talking about hemp, here are some hemp chives that we also work with in the Fab Lab, and just a simple example is that the tools and the kitchen lab that Catherine mentioned is very helpful also in, yeah, in this case you would just call it maybe shredding things, making things smaller, but it also allows us to rescale the material or the materiality, like this very rough fiber becomes very fine, and sometimes this can be very useful in, for instance, when you are doing model making or you're developing materials to imitate other types of materials. Then it can be very useful if you can scale down the fiber length of the material. And yeah, this overview, these examples, again, Maria, thank you, Maria, also showing this little collection called Corknut. I actually have also, I think, still. Yeah, this is actually a very durable sample. This was made last year and still alive, which is also very nice to see. That things I can also give it in the audience. Nice to see that a lot of things can maybe decompose very quickly, but other things can also last for a longer time. And in the courses that we do, we often stop at this kind of level of materiality. Sometimes we do think about what could be future possibilities, like maybe if this cork nut, which is actually not made of cork, it's made out of leftover peanut shells, but it has a very cork-like materiality, and of course then it makes sense to see, okay, what things have been made in cork, or how could what would be the possibility of having a cork that you could have as a paste, or maybe even 3D print. So these materials are actually opening up ideas, suggestions for possible design projects that could happen after. And yeah, talking about the locality or the link with local materials, this is not only linked to nature. Also, this is a kind of simplified map of Don Bosco with. Yeah, if you're into kebab, I don't know. I did not count the places. Mayela might know how many. I think maybe 15 or a lot of kebab places. And actually, she did not work with kebab or with the meat. Actually, with the oil that the kebab shops are using. One shop has like 20 liters of oil per week, which are used, and a lot of this is wasted in the end, not being used anymore. And for their project, they actually worked with the oil, which is also looking from an aesthetical point of view, a kind of a big experience. In their case, it was not just to turn the oil into clean oil to make more food, but actually combining it with lye that they actually got from the pizza ash, from the pizza ovens, which is also a local resource, and turning this into a product that I will just shortly show it in a video. It's 40 seconds, so I will just let you see it for yourself. Okay, very short intermezzo. Yeah, this the project itself also holds a little bit this display of the oil being something as a waste product, seen as very dirty, and then turned into a product where you can actually clean your hands. Is a bit of a play, also of course with the identity of materials. And yeah, what I just wanted to mention is about documentation. We do this in different ways, but because we have a material library at the faculty, we document many of these recipes. We keep them there with the material samples. They are also provided at the Fab Lab if you want to have a look at it. And this is something internally very useful for the students to work with, even if they haven't done or participated in a DIY workshop. And on the other hand, if we do a small presentation or an exhibition here at the faculty or somewhere else, we've been in Berlin last summer, then it's more a kind of postcard from Bolzano where people can see what we're actually doing, and also inspiring them to actually do it themselves, because these recipes are very accessible and they can be done with kitchen-like tools. And I just have to look. I don't know how I am in time. 4 minutes, okay. I know Seychelles is very strict, so I will be fast. Yeah, I will maybe keep this short, the Future Fibers project, also because we made an online documentation of the project. So this QR code will actually lead you to the online documentation of the project. On the left side, you see the window in the Fab Lab, where actually the project has been summarized. We often do this after semester projects, that we use the window to, oh, it was not my time, I hope. where we summarize the project partly for the Fab Lab to show like what has been done last semester, and at the same time also, because it is showing on the street, informing people of what can be done in the Fab Labs. And I will not go to the website, but maybe very shortly show what you can find in the Fab Lab. You have been there already, but there we have not been making postcards to actually document the project, but it has been focused on making small booklets, instructions, how you can use fiber waste to repair or enhance your clothings. This is a project from Marina Piva and Valentina Chemen on using a kitchen blender to turn your jeans that you really cannot wear anymore into small felt items. And this is not just for documenting, but they have also been doing a small workshop at the last BioLife Fiera or trade show here in Bolzano, where they actually demonstrated or brought this action into practice, which is very nice because it's, the Fab Lab is a place where we cook ideas, projects, but it's also nice when they actually go somewhere outside of the Fab Lab. And it, as you can see, this topic of fibers connected with a fashion show, a fashion exhibition, which is next to us, connects very well. And of course, it also makes a bit of attention for the BITZ at the trade show, so that people also know that we have this kind of institution here, and hopefully also combine in working with us. So I think in short, those are two examples that I have shortly shown. You can see more in the Fab Lab, and I invite you to have a look at the postcards or the booklets of the student work, because it's actually their work that you can find. So back to where we came from, and thank you. Grazie.
So I will invite all speakers here for the questions and answers. And then, Okay. Thank you very much for the three presentations. We're actually bringing us from products to more educational topics, then to materials. So we have actually seen very diverse ways of understanding how do-it-yourself can be applied. So I would just open the questions for the audience. So if you have any questions, you can address, and then we can discuss together. Yeah, Marcel.
Hello, and thank you for inviting us here and the very interesting presentation from different perspectives. I would like to understand a bit better, because you have different targets, and Cecil said, and I was also trying to understand how much what you do scale up to the numbers they have, okay? Or whether what you do is more feasible and adequate to, let's say, activities with few selected students that, for instance, in your case, they go around the town, they understand the context, and they bring back the ideas. So it's a matter of scale.
Okay. So I can add curricular, curricular versus extracurricular, because if I understand, at least this part is part of the curriculum of the
We have always about, I think, 15, 20 students in the class. It's also a bit, sorry, So you can hear me, hello people. Also a little bit related, because we really like to do the course or part of the coursework in the Fab Lab, not everything, but and there, last year it was very limited. Now we are back to a situation where we can work with about 15, 20 people in on a project. And regarding the scaling, that is a little bit maybe also what you mentioned, the kind of effect. I don't know that, for instance, we have been showing these DIY materials to people at conferences or like the BioLife or exhibitions. There is an online website where people can learn more about it. I don't know, how who is picking this up and who is maybe repeating this. But for instance, we had 2 invitations now from schools where they do where they have this crafting classes, and they actually asked. They are students of the Design for Children Master, which is happening here, and they were actually thinking of bringing in this kind of DIY approach for children to make it part of their, how do you say it, crafting classes, which I think is very positive. Yeah.
Any other questions? No questions? Okay, maybe I can ask one question. Okay, great. Yes. No. Great.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question that is a question about, in general, the model of Fab Lab and the economic model of Fab Lab. Because when we talk about do-it-yourself in some way to produce in this way, also in the fields of material, how is the best economic model to support these kinds of activities? For example, in the do-it-yourself, especially what you presented, that is both very interesting, how the designer can support themselves to promote the open design or open project in general. But this is, I think, is a problem in general of the model of Fab Lab, because if it's supported by the public income, maybe it's possible, but in terms of, I don't know if it's clear my question. What do you think about that? If it's a problem or not?
It's a problem. No, but I think it's a valuable, very valuable discourse, and I don't think that there's one question. I think there's many perspectives and maybe potential possibilities and directions we could all together, and propagate it also further on, try to work on about and see what is possible, where is what possible, depending so much on the different contexts, on the different DNA of a fantastic structure like we've seen in Trento, and kind of creating its activities and core of activities based on a certain, again, DNA, and then a very different, similar but very different DNA that we have for the Fab Lab here and so on, and each one is born from a different context and lives in a different context and therefore evolves in it. So I think finding an economic model per se, as we know the economy outside for a Fab Lab, is maybe a contradiction in terms. So I think it's a first question is, does everything around need an economic model? This is what I, from my perspective, would start with, and we see that, and okay, not to open that chapter concerning third-party financing for research in the universities, because at least in our university, that's kind of everything is heading to that. But then, if it's all about generating money, I could go outside, become the designer I was before I joined the academia, and then maybe generate even more money. It's really the question: what is it about? Is it about the generation of knowledge? Well, that costs money. And therefore we have politics to also decide what is more important than what. And I think it's there where it's really to question, is it really that where it needs to be self-supportive? By that losing all or very many of the educational values and so on and so forth, or is it something that no, it should not be dependent on the market, because then it might lose all the reasons for its mere existence. So I think for me it is really that and those discourses, and we have the same pressures here in our Fab Lab, which is again very successful on one hand in terms of numbers and participation, but on the other hand still very fragile internally, politically. It needs to prove its existence continuously. There's a very high rent that the university is paying for this space and so on in the middle of the city. Very, very expensive. So it's understandable, but on the other hand, I think it needs mediation, and it needs an open discourse as to the values and as to the targets. Because again, if it's about making money, then we find better ways. We cut the education all totally off. No, and then again, what's the sense? So I think it's a fine balance here in our Fab Lab. We introduced a while ago. Okay, it was a pandemic time, so that's really not. We can't draw any conclusions. But we introduced membership fees very carefully, because there was none before. We introduced different pricing for. It is still, I think, very, very friendly prices, and it's more maybe on the symbolic level of commitment. I will stop here, and maybe there's something else that somebody else would like to add something to the debate, but I
So I agree with him. Our goal is mostly educational, so it's really difficult to not ask for money from our department, our university, and so on. And something that I always try to not impose, to follow in my university is that you should also be able to prove that you are able to get money from other institutions, European banks, foundations, and so on. So the idea is that is a sort of cooperation with the really public money and still public money, but less just given to you because you just exist. But you are continuously proving that you are useful and you are producing activities, you are producing events, you are producing knowledge, culture, and so on. So I agree.
From my side, I will maybe just mention one simple example of the things we have seen, also turning it around, like seeing what value or money Fab Labs are generating, and maybe just a very simple example of the soap you have just seen. I cannot show you a sample because actually there is one sample exhibited in Berlin, right? You have received or nominated or selected for a Recycling Design Award, which is communicated. It gets attention. People look at that. Even our press office, I think, heard about it, and I think also the university is happy about these kinds of awards, recognitions, and then you can also turn it around. Okay, this kind of attention. It's also kind of, you could say, marketing for the university, creating visibility. What would it cost if we would give I don't know a company or advertising or Google Ads the money to be seen? I think compared with actually doing independent explorative work and being discovered outside also generates, you could say, kind of revenue. But turning it around should not be the goal. We should not teach our students just to start winning prizes, and if it happens, it's nice. But in a similar way, we should not become, I don't know, only problem solvers for and getting budgets for that. I think that's would not fit the Fab Lab charter, I guess.
Thank you, Art. Yeah. Any other final questions? Yeah.
It's quite related to this last part, and also because we mentioned we have, it's not a problem, but it's a challenge about keeping the student in the loop, because we're not a curricular course, we do not put the lab inside the courses, and this is actually by choice, not just happen. So in your case, that is the opposite. So you start with the courses that are in the curricula of the student. Is it easy then to keep them in the loop? Is it interesting for you to keep them after the course? And eventually, if you do it, which strategies do you have? Is it clear, the question? Like after the, yeah, like in this case, you had this exposition, and but is it usual that students keep working with you after the course? Is it usual that students keep going to the lab after the course? And if it's something that you wish for, if they actually do?
You want to answer? I mean, in the end, it's on top. It's not either or for us. It's this and that and that and that, and that's an extra value. Actually, the Fab Lab did not start with the courses. It started as a university-run city Fab Lab, where there's a complete core of activities and courses offered by the Fab Lab concerning the, let's say, the thematic and mainly tools that are offered by the Fab Lab, if it is computer programs or kind of, using the different facilities. And then when Art joined our faculty 2 years ago, then this is where Art, for instance, started doing his course at part, also at the Fab Lab, and also other colleagues are also doing that, if it is 1 day or 1 weekend workshop or continuous courses that are. So it's both. It's not either or. Maybe that is the difference, because our Fab Lab So BITZ is anyway open to the public. So like that, it's a continuous hub that exists besides the courses. I don't know if there's anything to add.
Yeah, I can only say it's not, how do you say it, a full-time classroom. Thank God it's not this. And actually that's also the moment where I think the Fab Lab really showed its beauty, or compared to maybe compared to, let's say, this university building, the Fab Lab is a bit outside. It's very accessible, very transparent. And yeah, last week we had a moment where graduates were together with the first semester students and people from the city working on t-shirts, like very different kinds of topics, projects happening parallel. And yeah, this kind of atmosphere is really, yeah, I think really special, really unique. And also I think there also a lot of the value of a Fab Lab is that it's like yeah, Alberto showed, it's sometimes in the evenings then the more kind of, you could see it as a social club, but things are being made, created together. And I think this kind of, there is also, of course, alumni network at the university, but the Fab Lab itself also has this kind of, constant interaction with both students and also graduates, keeping in touch. It happens actually in a natural way, so we don't really have to push it or, yeah.
Just for the love of... Sorry. Just for the love of discussion and provocation. I think that you showed us a lot of super interesting experience that has, in my opinion, in background, some important challenges. And I was trying to provoke you about the concept of scale. Okay, because we are probably all working on punctual scale, so agopuncture. We are doing interventions that are in a point. And what is usually missing in all our discussion is the systemic perspective, because the real problem is not just producing evidences on one single prototype, but is how we could scale out, perhaps better than scale up, our experience, how is the connection with the system, so which is the systemic part that interact with the single point. And this is, I think, a provocation also in terms of a political perspective, just because I think that design school in general have to deal with policy and politics, because all the acts that we are performing in the world are political acts. So it's about choices. It's not just about, let's say, materializing ideas. It's how we transform materialized ideas into something that could be permanent or effective. So the provocation is for you. I wait for your...
Who wants to start answering?
Honestly, you could provoke.
I don't know, Stefano did that, and I'm kind of trying to follow which you it was.
I don't know. Sorry, I don't perceive it as provocation if it was meant like that. I don't know exactly where to step in, but in general, this concept of the scaling up, how much impact is needed. It's like you say, if it's about how things are being measured, there is also a politics side. I think, especially also now, we live in a in a culture where a lot of what we do is being monitored, being watched, being used, not only online, but now also in public space. And I think one role of Fab Labs can also be showing a little bit of how do you say it, independency, necessary independency that needs to be also protected for creative explorations. And like in politics, you have the big parties that maybe set the main direction, but also the oppositions, the alternatives are just as important for not just to slow down the process of decision making, but also making people reflect and maybe adding a bit of context to, let's say, the big decisions. And I don't see the Fab Labs as any threat for industry. I think the industry is also not perceiving it as a threat in such a way because they are small, and I think having this kind of, I don't know, underdog position as an institution is maybe, I think it might even be an advantage of not becoming a kind of play ball for politics or financial context.
Probably is not completely related with what you were saying, because again, design is not our main strength, but for me, the kind of politics that I would like to tackle more is the one related to schools. So it's a matter of trying to reach as many teachers as possible, and that's my part, but a bigger part would be trying to make aware the province, in our cases, that we need more education in this field generally. I am taking the side of computer science here. There is a very large movement about teaching computer science in schools, but then this is enlarged to can be enlarged to other topics that, because computer science can bring it together a lot of other activities, making, making, designing, and so on. So together now with other departments, before was just my personal effort. The idea is trying to work with the schools as much as possible, because otherwise you only get a very limited view of what is going on here, and the only way to really reach a very large population is through schools.
Yeah, and schools are one of the most incredible networks that we have, that we really can say, well, that exists everywhere in every country. And I would claim that a first grader here on the other side of the world would more or less have same perspectives, wills, and their parents would also have the same hopes for them, in very different contexts, but nevertheless. And I think this is where it starts, but then it is always political. And I think also the time of being neutral and non-political. Now there's also an incredible worldly event on the other side of the world, which is, you know, very, very, very questionable. Not getting into that, but you know, we still look at it and not do anything. And I think this time, for me as a designer, that is long gone. When I studied design, this was not a part of the discussion. For our students now, this is the main discussion. The question is, for them, and I think also for us, what do we do about that? And I think it's there where every time we do something that is not related to that in any way, then we're doing the wrong thing. And I think this is a responsibility we all need to take. And every structure that we're having needs to assume that responsibility. And I think if we think that we're going to change the world with that project or structure tomorrow, we might be mistaken. But if we just turn one small knob or turn one small stone, that's already quite a lot. Because if they would do that, we would have the change that we really should bring about. So I fully agree. I don't think it's a provocation. On the contrary, it's a very, very, very important component to the discussion, to the discourse. And I think that Fab Labs, and again, there's more than 5,000 all over the world, far less in schools, but it's an incredible network, and there's much more power behind that. And there's so many voices being out there that, you know, the Fab Lab model is in fact outdated. It didn't prove up to be, and so on and so on. The question is, it didn't prove up to be what? So that's not the next production hub. No, and maybe the thoughts behind that were wrong, but that is surely the hub that could bring about very many other possible changes, maybe also related to production. This is what I also showed before, based on maybe other models, further models, new models. So I think there's much more to Fab Labs. The whole point also for the question, the first question that we had, which is really the key question of the existence of Fab Labs, it's all about generating value. And generating relevance to the core, to the place, to the direct stakeholders. And if we're able to do that in a Fab Lab, I think then we reach the goal and the point. And hopefully there would be those that also would finance it from the public, seeing the value. Yeah, I could go on, but I would.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I think this discussion is very valuable, so we can also continue this during our coffee break, which we have now. But later we have a demo session in the Fab Lab, so we will not only talk but also make things with our hands. While making things, we can also continue our discussions in the Fab Lab at 4:30. But till 4:30, please enjoy the coffee. And thanks a lot for the speakers for their very nice presentations.